Welcome to Paper Quest. I'm Jessie.
And I'm James.
And we're two friends teaming up in our ongoing quest through the Infinite Library.
Each episode, we get together to discuss our latest buddy read, swap stories on our recent solo reads, and talk about the upcoming books we look forward to reading next.
This is Paper Quest.
Alright, welcome back to another main quest episode of Paper Quest. Before we start, just wanted to remind everyone that our Facebook page is up with a schedule of our upcoming main quest releases. And we have a $1 Patreon for early access to episodes and general supporting of the show. And we also have an Instagram to check out as well.
Yeah, and you can follow us at Paper Quest Podcast on Facebook and YouTube as well. And go there to leave us comments and suggestions.
Our email is paperquestpod@gmail.com for questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, etc. But for now, we're going to jump into this episode's book, which is called Crying in Mart. This is a nonfiction memoir. Quick buddy book summary. Michelle Zauner, Korean-American musician, singer, director, and lead vocalist of the indie band Japanese Breakfast. Things get very deep and personal in her memoir, detailing her relationship with her cancer-ridden mother, the importance of food, growing up half American, half Korean, and her lead up to her fame, which her mother always complained would never happen, and who would never get the chance to be proven wrong. Initial spoiler-free, not really a lot of spoilers to talk about here, but spoiler-free thoughts.
Yeah, so I was the one who chose this book, and I found it again from the BookTube.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone just said it was a really fascinating read. It's not, I wouldn't say that it's unenjoyable, but saying that, someone's grieving process is enjoyable is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely an ode to the process that she went through. And
yes.
You feel that from the start. I listened to it.
Good. I was going to ask you. It makes it so much more personal.
Yeah, so it is read by her.
It is her, so it's like it feels really personal. It feels like a secret. You're like, okay, this is intense.
That is one note I wrote down, is the whole story feels very intimate, and it feels like you shouldn't be reading it.
And she's reading it how any audiobook is read, it's not like anything crazy. It's not like an audio drama.
No.
But her voice in it is very, is somber the right word? You just feel like it's very honest and depressing, and because it's sad. It's a story of cancer and stuff.
But the way that things are described,
mm-hmm.
Things that are genuine memories to her.
Oh yeah.
It feels like your friend is telling you this story of when she went to Mart and
mm-hmm.
she saw this person and it made her feel this way. So yeah, it is read in a way that is very honest and powerful, but not every moment is sad and dramatic, and there's
a little mix up in there.
Yeah.
It made me hungry. It made me grateful. It made me sad, and it's one of those things where you can kind of put your own life into perspective and be like, things can always be worse. I found it very interesting, keeping it spoiler free still. I found it very interesting, the focus specifically on Asian food culture and the relationship with her parents, mostly her mom. There is a decidedly severe lack of actual career in her current story life, the lead up to her. There's a little bit of lead up to what she is today, but this story, those are background things. This story is hardcore Asian food, Asian culture, story of her mother. Her dad is in there too and stuff, but I was thinking, oh, this is my career, my fame story, and that's not the take that she went with, which mm-hmm. is, I think, kind of nice. I liked that.
Yeah, I am definitely ready to get into spoilers, but I will say that it was very beautiful to listen
mm-hmm.
to and very sad, and I would definitely recommend it. Maybe if not, if you've just lost someone really close to you, I think it may hit too close to home because it, again, is very raw and real. But it's very genuine, and I enjoy that.
Yep, absolutely. jumping into the spoilers now, if you can spoil someone's life.
Yeah.
All right. First of all, 7-Up and soy sauce. I need to know about this. What kind of mix is that?
That's a good question, actually.
She said that, and I was like, did I misread 7-Up and soy sauce as like a mix together? I mean, I'm no chef. I don't even cook for myself half the time, so that was very interesting. I'm sure everyone else is like, yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the food. Food is such a major part of Michelle's memories.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one thing that her and her mom kind of meet in the middle on. They're very different. Her mom is this perfectionist Korean woman from Korea who cares a lot about beauty, who wants everything just so. And Michelle is someone who really wants her mother's approval and affection, but they don't have the same goals in life. Like, her mom wants a beautiful house. Michelle wants, doesn't care about her grades necessarily, doesn't care about how she looks necessarily.
It's classic. She has a different life path that she's trying to achieve, and the mom is classic. That's dumb. There's one way to do things. Like, you go to college, and
I mean, it's a stereotype, but in the book, it's true for Michelle of like, if you're not a doctor or an engineer, then you're basically nothing. And Michelle's like, well, I guess I'm nothing. Like,
well, and speaking of the food, I imagine, like, as I was reading it, and this sounds obvious out loud, but I wasn't thinking about it at the time, food for everyone in the world plays such a big role in memories.
I actually wrote that down. I wanted to ask you, do you have, there's food that Michelle talks about cooking when her mom has cancer that she remembers as a child, having the flu or whatever, and that's what her mom would make her. And do you have a food that's like attached to memory?
Classic grandma's cookies, always, but also me and my brother's favorite meal was always meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and corn. Like, that was always a thing growing up, and always anyone who doesn't like meatloaf would always come over and eat it. And they're like, oh, meatloaf, like, what the heck? But then they eat it, and it's like, oh, this is the best and only meatloaf I've ever had. Like, now I understand why you like it so much. But there's so many memories attached to that. Random school nights outside on our porch in the summer, like, just memories come flooding back in. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Michelle, like, it probably helped to write about food, because if she wrote about food, it probably brought in all those old memories and made the writing process easier, which is kind of cool.
Well, and I think it's interesting, too, because she has the unique experience of being Korean American and being able to go to Korea and have these foods she could only get in Korea or made by her mom. They were in Oregon. It's not like she could go down the street and like grab the same food. And her, going to her friends' houses, they weren't eating what she was eating. They weren't bringing lunches that she was bringing. So I feel like not only was it bonding for her, but it was central to a piece of her identity that was so different from everyone else.
And there's a lot of food she mentioned. First of all, I don't remember the names of them because I didn't write them down.
I will not be trying to speak Korean.
I wanted to write them down, but again, you and I did the audio, and I was like, I'm not going to rewind and lose my place and all that. I've had some of the food she's talking about, which is why I was like, oh my God, like, I want this so bad. She kept saying that her mom had a salty hand, and I was like, trust me, I understand. I got that salty hand. But yeah, I think we need to get to a hot pot ASAP, by the way, because I'm ready for some Asian food.
For sure. I will say my food memory is every Friday night, my grandma would order Chinese food.
Oh.
And it was like, I knew it was Friday because it was Chinese food day. And when we went, the owner there, his name was Leo, and he would let me take a free candy, like a York peppermint patty. And those are still my favorite candy. And so, like, I knew you were supposed to pay for them, but I got them for free. And then we got to have this really great meal at the dinner table as a family. And there's always still that moment when I eat a York peppermint patty where I'm like, ooh, like, this feels good.
Yes.
So I think, like you said, anyone can relate to those feelings that she was expressing. The food is different, the family is different, but that memory that food holds, I think we've all felt that in some way.
Chinese food, we, of course, who didn't around here? We always grew up eating Chinese food. And every single time Chinese food gets brought up or I'm eating it today, all I can think about is Seinfeld, because whenever we got Chinese food growing up, it was my mom, the three of us, my stepdad, my brothers and I. And, we would order Chinese food on a school night. We would order way too much, like, on purpose. Like we'd have a buffet of Chinese food, every single little thing. It's not like, oh, you get just the sesame chicken. Oh, you order just... No, it's everything. You mix it all up. Then we got to bring it into our bowls and plates in the family room, sit at the glass coffee table, and Seinfeld was on. Or maybe Everybody Loves Raymond. But, like, classic late 90s shows. So that's what I always think about when Chinese food comes up. I totally get that.
Yeah. So food was definitely a major piece. And it you hear it from the beginning, even before her mom is diagnosed with cancer, that food is something that comes up over and over. Obviously, we eat food every day. But I noticed it more prominently when her mom was going through cancer treatments, because her mom wouldn't eat for a period of time. And whatever she tried to make her Michelle's favorite things and the things that she would want to eat if she was sick, and that her mom would make her. And her mom kept being like, no, I don't want it, and turning it down. And Michelle was so distraught.
Well, she makes a point in the beginning of the book about the risk they take with food. They literally said you can't eat well without taking a risk. Yes. If you want to eat good, especially the way we do, where the food might be
raw when you get it.
Thank you. I was like, I can't think of the word raw. The food might be raw or whatever. And then that becomes an issue, because once mom is sick, it's like, okay, well, now she literally can't take that risk, or it'll make things worse.
Yeah. There's one point where they have her mom's friend is visiting, taking care of the mom, and she makes something and the eggs aren't fully cooked. And Michelle is like, don't give her that. Like, that's not okay. And the woman is just like, this is how we eat it. And Michelle's terrified. Like, that could be the thing.
But you kind of hope, having grown up that way, it's like eating foods in other countries and stuff, or drinking their water. Your body's used to it one way. So you kind of hope, like, okay, well, maybe that's just what her body's used to, but taking that risk is just so dangerous.
Yeah.
And of course, they also brought up, sort of like a side note, but a tangent with it. I always love when she brings up Americans and how we treat doctors. Like, oh, you scraped your elbow, we have to go to the doctor immediately.
That whole scene. So there's a whole section of the book where Michelle is talking about how her mom parented in regards to injuries, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
Because we definitely do, like, oh, you have a sniffle, you need to stay home from school. Pre-COVID, especially now after COVID. But yeah, like, Michelle falls out of a tree, and her mom's like, why would you do that to your body that I gave you? Like, why would you dishonor me by hurting yourself accidentally? And she talks about her mom versus American moms, and as I am a mom. And so I thought it was really interesting where she was like, she eventually says her mother-in-law is a mommy mom. And that means, like, she has a snack for you when you come home from school, or she supports you when you get a B instead of an A in class, or even if you make a horrible Mother's Day card on, like, an index card and throw it at her, she's like, thank you so much. Whereas her mom would be like, fix this.
Yeah, well, in the one example, Michelle was saying, like, my mom is borderline stereotypical. You're never good enough. Your hair is not perfect. If I fix it, then we're good to go.
Yeah.
But she's like, you listen to these Americans, and a mom or a dad might say, I'm proud of you. Asians don't say I'm proud of you. That's not a thing. Like, you can always do better. Why would I be proud of you? It's just like, God, I mean, we've heard these things before, but just listen to her talk about it and her growing up that way. It's like, obviously she wasn't abused as a child, but it's like, it's just different,
Something else I thought that was really interesting was the dichotomy of her relationship with her mother, which was this very, traditionally strict Korean viewpoint. And then her father...
Who is American, by the way.
Yep. So her father went to Korea, I get, right? And met the mother, and they got married after 3 months, and she came back with him to America. They also traveled and stuff before she got pregnant, but he's very much like an American, and is, you know, his past is that of an addict. So he has this kind of sordid past, but he's sober now, and they're like in Oregon, and they're, you know, in the woods. The general relationship with her dad was distant. He was there.
Yeah.
But it always felt distant, and it always felt like it was at an arm's length, and that only increased when her mother got sick.
I took a big issue with both the mom and the dad because, now, first of all, this is Michelle's point of view. Obviously, we don't have everyone's same side of the story. Right. It's a memoir. But it seems like they were just, like, rude and unfair to her. Like, there were certain situations. Like, there was one point where the mom was like, you were a bad kid growing up. And then she drops the bomb of, like, I had a second kid. We had an abortion because I didn't want to go through that again. And, like, I was just like, God, like, this is rough. Like, they were so intense about it. And she was saying something completely normal and okay. And, like, her dad got all mad and, like, this is why everyone says, you know, not do this, and that. Like, I forget what it was. But he was like, see, your mother warned me if we
That was
hung
after
out,
the mother died.
Yeah. If we hung out and talked about this, and that, you'd make it about yourself. And she's like, well, this is like a normal, like, well, how are you not understanding this?
They were just having dinner.
Yeah, it was insane. I was like, oh, I'm getting, like, pissed off at these people. I don't even know them.
Well, I think it was, you know, they are human in a very human way. They are not storybook characters, and it is definitely Michelle's perception of her parents. Like you said, we don't have the other points of view. But, you know, maybe her dad was more distant because of his own upbringing, which we hear a little bit about. And maybe the mom definitely, as you know, her cancer progresses and she passes away, and Michelle goes and sees family members in Seoul and things like that, she starts going like, oh, my mom did that too. Like, oh, maybe we're more alike than I knew. Yeah. And so I think there's some of that of when you're a kid, you just don't know who your parents really are outside of being your parents. Yep. So I thought that was very interesting. I also thought that she did a good job of explaining Korea and the Korean culture for, you know, you and I know a bit about Korean culture, but in a way that was very achievable for people who might not. Yeah. If that makes sense.
I did enjoy the mom in a lot of parts, though, because it's kind of the unintentional, like, she's funny because she's blunt sort of thing. Like, there was the bathhouse scene, and first of all, that was funny because they're making bets on whether Michelle's boyfriend meeting her parents for the first time would get naked in a Korean bathhouse
with her dad.
Next to her dad. Yeah. And I'm like, probably to prove a point, he will. He'll do it. But I just loved when she and her mom were together and they got undressed, and she was like, did you shave? Shaving looks slutty. Like, she was yeah. She's like, I mean, I trimmed. Well, it's slutty. And I was like, okay, I mean,
yeah, God. She was like, don't do that. Don't do that again.
I didn't know shaving is considered slutty for you. That's so crazy.
One thing that came up a lot maybe not a lot, that impacted me in the you know, the cancer story is that before Michelle's mom passes from cancer, her grandma passes away. And that was the one time that she truly saw her mom break down. And, you know, Michelle is reenacting it, and she cries for her mom in Korean. And going forward, you hear a lot where the mom says, you know, save your tears for when your mom dies, basically. And she does through all the cancer treatments. She's kind of stiff upper lip, doesn't really, you know, let her emotions get the best of her. Even when they were saying, like, yeah, it's terminal, like, I'm definitely going to die. And she starts crying. Her mom was like, don't cry now. Save it for when I die. And when she does actually die, and Michelle's going through that moment, is very, it's like a release. And you felt it. Maybe because I was listening to it versus reading it. But
listening is the way to go.
it was powerful, and it was. I thought that's where the book was going to end, to be honest, like with the death, but it didn't, and I thought that was really interesting.
What's funny is, funny not funny, whatever. It's just interesting. Like the whole story is leading up to the mom's death. Like she prefaces the book like, "This is my mom's story of cancer and dying, and our progress through that." Once the death occurs, the entire rest of the book is 90% about food. I was like, "Oh, this is a really random and strange turn. Now we're just talking about food for the rest of the book," and then it ends.
Well, it's very much her grieving process.
Yeah, well, yeah, I should say it wasn't random in a bad way. It was the next step. Like she wanted to learn how her mom cooked things, and she wanted to take on that role or whatever. But I was like, oh yeah, this is an interesting way to end this.
Well, even so, her and her boyfriend Peter, who was in the bathhouse, they end up getting married, and she has the first Thanksgiving without her mom, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna make panko breaded sweet potatoes and bring them," and was like, "This is the thing my mom always made. I'm gonna bring them with me." And like only her husband ate them, and I think her mother-in-law, and everyone else was like, "What the heck is that?" But it felt good for her.
Yeah,
and it made her, she made kimchi like 10 times in a row because she wanted to get it just right the way her mom made it. And kept trying, was like, giving it away because she had too many and things like that. And it definitely was her way of understanding in that moment what she was going through and trying to reconnect. I think that was, again, the only word I can use is interesting, because fun or anything more positive feels weird. But,
well, I'm sure to this day, her making the food that her mom made is still the connection.
Yeah.
It's still the memories. Like, that's just how she's always going to connect going forward with Regan. And
I think that's true for a lot of people. There are, foods that I ate growing up in New England that, you and your side of our family have never heard of or had until I'm like, well, what about this thing? And vice versa. Like, before I moved, more southern, I had never had boiled peanuts. Like, that's not a thing. Where I grew up, you cannot get them. So all of those things, they continue to exist in our specific areas and cultures because we're passing them down.
Well, and my mom still has, like, this dirt old manual, like, handwritten recipe cards in a box from our grandma. And every once in a while, it's like, oh, yeah, this is so delicious. And she's like, oh, yeah, I just found that in the recipe box. It's like, okay, cool. Like, that's awesome. Another thing that came up sporadically was good luck charms and superstitions. And there were some interesting ones in there. But what I really found interesting was anytime that mom had, or her daughter, or Michelle, had a dream involving poop in any way, it meant we must now buy lottery tickets.
So I have reiterated this to one of our family members since reading it because it's stuck with me. But yeah, and you couldn't talk about it. You just had to say, hey, we're going to pull over at the 7-Eleven. And I'm not going to tell you why, don't ask any questions. Yeah. And they always won. So apparently it's a thing, and we're going to have to test out the theory.
It's just so weird. Like, if you have a dream where you accidentally, like, pooped your pants or, poop in a toilet, or it's just like, why? Where did the connection come from where, we must now buy a lottery scratcher?
I'm not sure. But
that's a new one.
So my dreams in general are very mundane, and I often dream about my puppies who still are being housebroken. And so I will dream about cleaning up after them. Yeah. And I'm like, well, now do I need to go get a lottery ticket? And like, I can't say where I'm going.
I don't know if that's like Michelle's family thing. I don't know if that's generally found in Asian cultures, like do Koreans in general. Like, where did that come from? That is so random.
But if anyone knows, please message us, leave it in the comments, because we need more evidence.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Should we be buying lottery tickets after such dreams?
Like, there were some interesting and fun ones in there, but when they said that one towards the end, that was like, hold on, did I mishear that? That's really weird. That's really, I've gone over everything in my notes. What about you?
So one thing I wanted to talk about, and then I have a question, was that they decide to take the mother to Korea one last time after she's got cancer. And she arrives, and it's really traumatic. By the time she gets there, her fever spikes. She's barely coherent. And they fully debate, like, should she go to the hospital? Should she just lie here? What do we do? But in all of that turmoil, she does go to the hospital. She's there for like 2 or 3 weeks, and Michelle's there constantly taking care of her. And she's calling back home to her boyfriend every single day, multiple times a day, giving updates. They've been together, I would say, years at this point.
I don't remember, to be honest.
Probably like 2 to 3 years, because there's some like finishing college things. The timeline is not straight chronological, so there's jumping around. But she calls him up and says, we need to get married. Mm-hmm. And we need to get married before she dies, and she's going to die soon. And he agrees, and that gets the mom out of this kind of really serious moment and gives her something to look forward to. And they are able to start planning the wedding there, and they, the auntie goes and gets her to try on these different wedding dresses, and they're sending pictures back to the mom so the mom can approve, and they're packaging up these things to bring back to America. They get like a medical flight with a nurse all the way back to America, to Oregon, and they have it all planned, and the mom starts walking every day so she can be up for the ceremony. And there was really this moment of like, everything's looking up, and maybe we can like, skirt fate in a way. Yeah. Get around it. Obviously, from the back of the book, that's not what's happening. But it definitely felt like maybe it could. Maybe they would be the ones who beat
I know.
odds.
I was like, I know this book ends, so I don't know why I'm getting my hopes up. Like, yeah. But it really felt like, oh, maybe the story will change in the end.
Yeah, it didn't. But I appreciated that idea that you're looking to the next thing. But
I was worried because she made a point to say, like, every time I brought something up, is this good enough? Is that good enough? Yeah, that's great. Oh, you look good. It's like, oh, she's not giving me crap anymore. Like, That's not a good sign.
Yeah, even on her wedding day when her mom said she looked beautiful, she wanted her mom to fix, be like, oh, you're looking a little fat. Like,
yeah, say something so there's something to fix.
Yes, to be herself. Mm-hmm. Something, too, we hear a lot about is, the different relationships. And there is definitely I don't know if hierarchy is the right word, but there's a set of manners and customs in Korean culture where you listen to people who are older than you and you treat them differently, call them different names. And the friend that comes and helps to take care of the mom, I want to say her name was Kai. It's Kye in the book is how it's spelled. She kind of takes over, and the mom goes from not eating the food her daughter's giving her to being like, oh, my older friend, my older, de facto sister, basically, is telling me I need to eat this, and I need to eat this much, and she starts doing it. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really interesting, too, because we get a glimpse into, Michelle's the youngest, and she gets different, she has to interact differently with all of her aunts, and, like, her oldest aunt is different than her youngest aunt, and I just appreciated that kind of glimpse. Again, It felt like you were reading something intimate that you shouldn't be reading.
Oh, yeah. Nope, I love how personal it was. Love/hated.
So my last question was, obviously she's exploring her grief by writing the book. And like we just said, it's very intimate. What are your thoughts on using this method to grieve? I mean, she's really bearing her soul to her readers.
I was thinking about this in the beginning of the book because she was kind of talking bad about her parents and how annoyed they could be or annoying they can be. And I was like, if I wrote a book about my life, and obviously mom is dead now, which is horrible, but if I was writing about my life, could I talk good or bad about my siblings or my parents? Like, is that wrong? Do I put the good and the bad? Like, that's a hard thing to do.
Her dad is still alive, as far as I know, and she does not cut him any slack.
I got the impression that he was still alive. Yeah, it wasn't brought up.
He went off and married someone else in another Asian country, and she was like not praising the situation.
Yeah. First, I mean, writing anything down, whether you publish it or it's for yourself, it's in a diary or whatever, that is extremely helpful. I think a lot of people have done that. I've done it. Writing something out to get it, because you always have those fake arguments in your head. I wish I said it this way, or you just want to get something out.
It helps you process.
Yeah, it's a really nice way to process. Publishing it, that's very intense. But I wonder if the world knowing everything she knows and feels helps her at all. Like, I don't know.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know we've both lost people. My general grieving process is like, and my general process for any big feeling is like, big negative feeling is I'll cry for like 20 seconds. And then I'm like, all right, we're done. Like, what's the next thing? And that's probably super unhealthy. You should probably not do that. But that's, I never think that the people that I have lost in my life want me to dwell on those things.
Sure.
So I very much, keep calm and carry on, as the Queen would say. And like every once in a while, like my grandma helped raise me, and I'll have moments where like I very much remember doing something and I'm like choked up about it, or like, feel the feeling, or like, oh, I wish, we could be doing this thing together. But I don't know that I've ever like grieved in this way that she is in her writing.
Yeah, I was going to say, my response to this isn't very exciting. It's kind of dull, but like, I'll be lucky if I even cry to grieve for something. Like, I don't think I'm doing anything unhealthy. I'm just quick to accept things, which, I mean, that's just it. Like, things happen, and, I'm not saying I've never cried before. I certainly have, but I just accept it and move on. I don't know what else to say.
It's part of the life process, too.
Yeah.
I think...
And other people experience it a lot worse, and, I mean, I think I'm happy that I don't experience it that way, but maybe sometimes I feel more robotic because I don't. Like, oh, should I be... you and I are the same situation. Should I be doing what you're doing? Because I'm not. I don't know. It's just bad things happen. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely appreciated this book. It gave me lots of feels, good, bad, and ugly. Cancer sucks, clearly.
Yeah.
I've had family members who have cancer.
Same.
Or who have passed from cancer, but I've not been the caregiver.
I was always young when most bad things have happened.
Yeah.
So I don't even have a lot of memories.
I am the youngest in my generation of the family, so.
And I'm the oldest outside of a half-brother, so.
True.
Did you happen to look up any of Japanese Breakfast's music?
I did not. I meant to, because you had mentioned it.
I was just curious. Not a big question, but.
Yeah, I definitely plan to at some point. I'm interested to just even to see her, because I have, the vision in my mind.
I kept Googling her picture because I was like, I wanted to picture her when she was talking. So I was like, I forget what she looks like. I have to look.
Something you just made me think of. I don't know why. But on the gravestone, they specifically write not, that, here lies like a loving mother. They write a lovely mother and wife.
Uh-huh.
And they make this distinction of being pretty versus being kind and loving.
Mm-hmm. And I like that.
I thought it was really interesting because, again, it goes to cultural differences, because the headstone manufacturer or whatever, I don't know, thinks it's a typo, and he puts loving, and they have to go get a new gravestone because it's like, no, we meant lovely. And he like maybe couldn't process like that's not grammatically correct.
Or they were just like, oh, that's kind of rude. You don't want loving.
Like, she's
just
not
lovely.
Loving?
Oh yeah, she was fine. She was lovely.
She was beautiful.
There was love in there somewhere.
I thought that, I don't know what made me think of that, but I thought that was an interesting piece too.
Yeah.
So clearly we both enjoyed the book, and we've mentioned before, it's kind of hard to rate someone's lived experience in life.
Uh-huh.
But, what is your general rating or feeling?
I gave it 4 out of 5. This is a rating that just was like, that's what I feel. don't ask me for an explanation because I can't.
Yeah. I agree. 4 out of 5. For a moment, I had this moment of like, maybe it's a 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5s for me are just ones that I will reread. We've talked about that before, but I don't know if I could reread it.
Yeah.
It's intense.
I don't know if rereading a nonfiction book would ever come up in my life, even as much as I loved a previous. I don't know if, I read the Octopus book. I don't know if that's going to show before or after this episode. Soul of an Octopus. But as much as I loved that and as much as I got out of that book, I don't know that I'm ever going to reread that. But it's so cool that I did.
Yeah, I think the only maybe reason that I would reread it was past some similar grieving experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I don't know. I loved it. It was very good. It was good pace. It was short. But it had so much jam-packed in there.
Oh, yeah. All the emotion. All the food.
Lots of food. So, I don't know. Yeah, it was great. I definitely suggest reading it.
Also, I mean, it's kind of the title, but I learned what an H-Mart was.
True. It's a convenience store.
Yep. The H stands for something. I forget because it's a Korean name. But
yes. So, yeah, definitely go read it.
All right. And you've got the summary for our next main quest buddy book read.
Yes. So, the next book we're reading is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. And it is a new book, but it's the first of 2. And actually, we're staying on theme because it is the author's debut epic fantasy novel.
Oh, okay. I like that.
And this is, again, one that I suggested. It is based on Chinese legends. We all know I like history and legends and, retellings of things.
And I just love Asian legends.
Yeah. Well, we don't, it's not something we learn a lot about in America growing up.
No, not really.
So it's fun to hear more about it and explore these kind of different cultures. So this is definitely pulled from Amazon. We actually barely know what it's about, other than that we're going to read it.
Yeah.
So this might be new to both of us. It says, growing up on the moon.
Good start.
Oh, no. We know. Okay. I'm really bad with names, guys. Zingy?
Oh, let me see it. Okay, well, an X should be like an SH sound, but it's probably Xingyan. Xingyan. X is SH in Asian
Guys.
phonetics.
All right, I'm just going to say the main character.
Okay.
Growing up on the moon, the main character. It sounds so bad. Is accustomed to solitude, unaware that she is being hidden from the feared celestial emperor, who has exiled her mother for stealing his elixir of immortality. But when her magic flares and her existence is discovered, she is forced to flee her home, leaving her mother behind. Alone, powerless, and afraid, she makes her way to the celestial kingdom, a land of wonder and secrets. Disguising her identity, she seizes an opportunity to learn alongside the emperor's son, mastering archery and magic, even as passion flames between her and the prince. To save her mother, she embarks on a perilous quest, confronting legendary creatures and vicious enemies. But when treachery looms and forbidden magic threatens the kingdom, she must challenge the ruthless celestial emperor for her dream, striking a dangerous bargain in which she is torn between losing all she loves or plunging the realm into chaos. Daughter of the Moon Goddess begins an enchanting duology which weaves ancient Chinese mythology into a sweeping adventure of immortals and magic, of loss and sacrifice, where love vies with honor, dreams are fraught with betrayal, and hope emerges triumphant.
So this sounds like it's going to be a 2-part fantasy epic, and this sounds amazing. I'm all about it.
Yes, it does sound amazing. Again, I apologize to all of China.
All of China.
For my fear of... I am just afraid of pronouncing names, because for me, names are very important, and I feel like I'm being disrespectful.
There's a good chance that I would do in the audio just so I can get the pronunciations of the name.
Thank goodness. And then you can tell me and correct me.
Actually, I know I am because I already have it. So yeah, I'm doing the audio on this one.
All right. So that is what we're going to be talking about on our next main quest. Definitely, if you get a chance, pick it up, read it, listen to it, and we will be talking about it soon.
All right, so check out all social media and the $1 Patreon. Until next time,
Bye.
bye.